Come
All
on.
right, we are live. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Joseph J. Burt-Miller Jr. I'm here with Dr. Lisa Marie Lee, and together we're bringing you Docs and Docs, where two doctors providing insight on the latest documents from both a cybersecurity and HR perspective. Dr. Lisa, how are you?
I'm well, Dr. Joseph. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Had a good holiday. I assume you did as well.
Yes, I did.
Great, great.
It wasn't necessarily a break, but
Uh-oh.
it felt like I worked
Still,
more
still
during.
was getting some work in.
Yes,
I
but
hear you.
it is what it is.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, along that note, uh, hackers are still working during the holiday too, as which is the subject of our talk today.
Yes, yes. They never take
So
a break.
no, so the Guardian, they was hit with a ransomware attack
Mhm.
around the holidays. Um, so I'm ready to get into it. So
Yes.
yeah, so 200-year-old British newspaper, The Guardian, headquartered in London, with offices in New York and Australia, was a victim of a ransomware attack on 20 December 2022. Since the incident, Guardian employees have been told to work from home till at least 23 January 2023. The incident reportedly disrupted Wi-Fi access at the Guardian's headquarters and impacted other shared computer systems. This attack forced staff at the office to work on their mobile devices. Security researcher Kevin Beaumont stated that the outage was quite significant as the entire internal network was taken offline. So you may ask, like, what is ransomware? So what ransomware is, it attacks typically ransomware attacks typically involve hackers gaining access to the company's computer system and installing software that encrypts every document and file that can be found, transform it into a secret code. At this point, hackers demand payment, often in Bitcoin, in exchange for an encryption key that restores the files. The Guardian Media Group CEO Anna Bateson and the editor in chief, Catherine Viner, told the Post on 20 December 2022, as we previously announced, the Guardian systems have been subject to a serious network disruption. We have been able to keep publishing our journalism digitally and in print, but a number of key IT systems have been affected.
Mhm.
The New York Post parent company News Corp was the target of an online attack in February 2022. News Corp Chief Technology Officer David Klein and Chief Information Security Officer Billy O'Brien wrote in an email to employees, "We appear to have been the target of a persistent nation state attack activity that affected a limited number of our employees. Mandiant, a cyber tech firm hired to investigate, assesses that those behind this activity have a China nexus and believes they are likely involved in espionage activities to collect intelligence to benefit China's interests."
Mhm.
So just some recent ransomware activity. So ransomware gangs, including Lockbit, attacked and then apologized for attacking Canada's largest children's hospital and Los Angeles Public Housing Authority, among others.
Mhm.
At least 219 local governments, healthcare providers, colleges, universities, and school districts in the U.S. alone were victims of ransomware attacks last year, according to published numbers by MCSoft Malware Lab.
Mhm.
Now, The Guardian, they have been vocal about the Russian war with Ukraine from the start of the war and has supported Volodymyr Zelensky and the West. So,
Mhm.
high probability that Killnet, possibly funded by the Russian intelligence organization, the GRU, could have induced a file encrypting ransomware into the Guardian Media Group's network.
Yes.
So, as we said, uh, attackers don't seem to take any breaks. They don't take any vacations. They keep going.
Yeah.
Um, as I mentioned like earlier, I thought this story was quite significant, given that the Guardian is one of my I say one of my favorite news outlets for research, particularly as it comes to cybersecurity. I think they do quite a great job when they cover that, in my opinion. So,
Mhm.
so to hear that they were attacked, I thought that was it definitely caught my attention. Um, but it just kind of makes you wonder if well, for one, these type of attacks are not necessarily going to cease. We're going to see numbers continue to rise,
Yeah.
but it makes me wonder if there's going to be maybe more sort of retaliatory attacks like this. I mean, it's not quite confirmed. Of course, Russia denies it, but it's highly likely. Um, I think from Russia's standpoint, anyone who sides with Ukraine or supports Ukraine in any way
Yes.
is an enemy to them. So,
Yes.
um, do you think that maybe other as now as we're talking more news media outlets, maybe particularly in the United States, if they seem
Yeah.
to show more support for Ukraine, like could they be, do you think they could be targets, maybe for, future attacks?
I'd have to say yes. I'd have to say yes. I would also like to say that I don't think it would just be limited to just the conflict within Russia and Ukraine, the war that's going on with them. I think when it comes to any political issue, I mean, we've seen forms of attacks in specific ways with the use of media when it comes to the political system with the last election and election before.
Mhm.
So, regardless what people believe, something occurred. Media is used as a way to try to change minds or threaten or, sway thinking.
Mhm.
Hence the term fake news. Regardless of
Right.
what side you lean on, you're believing that, you can change people's thinking through some form of threats through the use of media. Now we're focused on ransomware and a cybersecurity aspect. And I would say yes again to that. Because we're speaking about politics and we could just focus here on the US since we were thinking, we're speaking on could other media outlets be vulnerable? Yes. It, information has been attacked during our political system. So it's only the next step would be to look at media and use that as a way to try to sway how people think and things of that nature. You see document dumps all the time on Twitter, whether
Mhm.
it's someone's nudes or
Right.
you or anything like that. And Twitter is a form of media, and that's the main platform that journalism, is used. That's where they go to voice their opinion before they take it to print, whether through online platforms or larger platforms or blogs or whatever it may be. It starts first on environments like Twitter, which is a media platform. Regardless of what people want to believe, it's used for media purposes. It's used to provide information and inform. Yes, it's social media, but that's the whole purpose of the platform. So I would have to agree with saying yes, this is just the beginning.
Now, one thing that stuck out to me was that as a result of the attack, Garden CEOs informed their employees to work from home.
Mhm.
Employees are currently working from home until the end of this month. Now, given that I think the debate concerning remote work continues to be a debate, honestly.
Mhm.
Whether to have full remote or hybrid or full in office situations like this definitely you know makes sense to still allow to have employees to still continue the operations of in this case of the newspaper
Mm.
organization. um now with with current employees that are, you know, I guess more or less against remote work,
Yeah.
but when things maybe, when certain incidents like this happen, I don't think you would want to implement remote work only when something goes down or if there's emergency.
Yeah.
I feel there should be at least, if a company is, let's say a company is working from home, not working from home, but primarily in office. But if you're not testing your servers, your systems, at some point to have like a full load to where you have majority of your staff working from home to make sure that you can still carry on operations. But if you're so adamant on having everyone in office, you don't allow that to happen. Um, Now, do you feel like when it comes to remote work, like maybe certain companies should kind of change their mind, or maybe even like take a step back to kind of rethink this, as far as especially for those that are really against even hybrid, even having the hybrid option, those that are really pushing for everyone to come back to the office. Do you think like incidents like this should make them kind of reconsider that stance?
Ah, Lord, I don't even know why this is such a debate. I say it all the time, as you know. I say it all the time. It's
Yeah.
what effective for a company, yeah, you can't make cars at home. So those people need to be at the actual facility, But regardless of what people really think, I think it's just important that we focus on ensuring that work processes and just operations are effective. Like we're not even speaking on, just remote work and all of that. Remote work, regardless whether it's remote, in person, whatever, if processes aren't effective, it doesn't matter. As we see with this situation, your processes were ineffective.
Right.
This is hold on, let me hit the button. I'm late. I'm trying to sound the alarm. We need to sound the alarm. We need to sound the alarm because people are worrying about the wrong thing. They're worrying about the wrong thing. The main issue here is companies are not prepared for cyber attacks. They're worrying about
Mhm.
remote work and all this and that. That's not the issue. That's not the issue.
Right.
You are not prepared for a cyber attack. Like this is the Guardian. This is one of the largest media platforms in the world. You know what I mean? And you don't have a plan for, types of ransomware or cybersecurity plan, IT plan, whatever you want to call it. You're not prepared, especially when
Right.
you're speaking on a lot of secular issues. I mean, excuse me, political issues. Well, yeah, secular issues that enrage different groups around the world, and people don't like specific opinions. And uh it's nothing new that media platforms like these are victims to some sort of attack. Prior to computers really being an issue, or not an issue, but a benefit to how we communicate in the world, there was newspapers and things like that. And journalists were attacked. Journalists are always a victim. So it's just really weird. Yeah, we're sending these people home to do remote work, but what are you doing to shore up your work processes and to ensure that the everything is protected and safe, not just the company as a whole, but employees as well, you know?
Right. No, I definitely, no, I agree. I feel like there needs to be contingencies in place, like
Mhm,
for events like this that may happen. Um, it 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 also because I think one of the things that has always been an issue when we talk about cybersecurity is also funding. When it comes to like budgets for within an
mhm,
organization, and cybersecurity tends to get the short end of the stick. But then when attack happened, then that's when the CEO start paying out the money. But then you're paying out double if you were, if you took more, preventative steps. to address, so bolster your cybersecurity for your organization beforehand, as opposed to being reactive and even maybe even paying more. Um, so hopefully, I mean, but again, these type of attacks happen all the time.
Yes.
So it doesn't really. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to necessarily take for, I guess, organizations to really, I'd say, to take cybersecurity more seriously. You know, I mean, that there has been some improvement lately. I think there was some. I saw some funding coming in as far as for the federal level for
Yeah,
cybersecurity.
a lot going on
Uh,
that side. Mhm.
I think it's a good. I think it's a good start, but there's still quite a bit to be done.
Mhm.
But no, you know when you have incidents like this, if it kind of reminds me even from my previous career field, working in HVAC, and part of what we did, and those who don't know, HVAC, heat and ventilation, air conditioning, air conditioning, heater, stuff like that. So now part of that, we would do generator tests.
Mhm. Oh,
um
yeah,
and
yeah.
this
Makes
and
sense.
this was when I was working at the VA,
Mhm.
hospital. And from time to time, I forget the interval now, but we did it regularly, where we'll do generator tests where we switch over the power to our generators, from the hospital, and then we'll take our readings and make sure everything was good, and then we'll switch it back. you know but then that gave us an indication that was good, a good assessment to let us know, to say, okay, I generate, if something was to happen, we're good to go on generator power, because we actually did a test.
Yes.
you know I don't think so. What I feel the problem is that a lot of organizations, that they're not having tests, they're not having any regular tests um when it comes to remote work, because
Mhm.
that's a whole different network. And now you're talking about your VPN. You want to make sure your VPN is set up. You now, for your employees to to take their mobile devices home. So so that includes cell phones, laptops, what have you, to make sure that they can connect to the VPN, back to the network from where they're logging in from home, or alternate workspace that they're able to get on without any problems. You need to kind of have almost like dress rehearsals, in a sense, and
Mhm.
to make sure, because I don't think you want to wait until an incident like this happens. Now I can't say that, I don't know for sure that the Guardian wasn't already doing that. I just, from their article, they instructed employees to work remotely. So I don't know if they've been working remotely at any point in time before this incident, but um I know that some organizations, they wait. Especially, I mean, the big example would be the start of the pandemic. A lot of organizations were forced to go
Yeah.
into remote work, and a lot of them didn't have that in place beforehand. So a lot of organizations were kind of learning on the fly to kind of figure out, are we going to use Microsoft Teams, or are we going to use Jabber, or Zoom, or whatever. So a lot of organizations were figuring it out, because they never had at least so many employees working from home at one time before. So I don't think we need to wait until incidents like this happen. I think we need to start having that readiness. So even if for organization that's really on having the stance to say they want their employees to be in office, I think you should still implement something to where whether
Yes.
once or twice a month, say, hey, everyone work from home. Let's make sure that we're good, and report any problems so that we could address it um in a reasonable time. And one thing I thought you said was significant, was that when there news organizations that are reporting politically, or really showing that heavy political leaning,
Mhm.
I think that definitely, you definitely become susceptible to nation state attacks, as we've
Yes.
just learned. So, News Corp, the parent company, other New York Post, like, their CEO stated that, they were affected by, or that they believe that it was an attack from China. And then, of course, with the Guardian, as I said, like they've been very vocal about the Ukraine war and showing support for Ukraine,
Mhm.
and they have reason to believe that it was, this attack came out from Russia. Um, so yeah, definitely, if you're a company that is, kind of in that space, in that political space, and very vocal, and in the forefront about things, I think you should definitely make sure that your systems are backed up. You have your good VPN set up. Your employees know how to access the network from home, and that they have good equipment. If not, get them new laptops, get them new, mobile devices, cell phones, what have you, just in the event something like this happened, because especially a big media company like the Guardian, they're definitely going to be a target.
Mhm.
So, and I don't think, especially as this war continues to go on, other maybe news outlets that have been showing support for Ukraine, they could be on, a nation state short list.
Yes.
So, so
Mhm.
it's definitely something to look out for. And we'll see how things progress. Because they're having, like I said, the Guardians having their employees until the end of this month. So we'll see how things progress and see if they get their systems back up and things are good to go by then. But yeah, but it's a very significant attack.
Yes. I think there are two takeaways from this article, being that remote work is the new normal and here to stay, as I always say, Dr. Joseph, and also that regardless of the type of company that you are working for, or whatever the organization is, they are vulnerable to cybersecurity attacks. Whether it's because they're working with a company that does something that some group doesn't like because of political reasons, or for whatever reason,
Right.
whether they're doing business in a different country, or work, or they speak out about an issue on Twitter and online or through press releases. It's important for it to be understood that all companies are vulnerable to cybersecurity issues. And yes, cybersecurity, specifically this topic, ransomware, is an HR issue. I think it's important for people to understand that it is an HR issue, because ransomware is spread through email.
Hmm.
Employees are using emails, and then they become vulnerable to these malicious attacks by clicking on or opening attachments and different downloads and things like that. So it's important so that there is effective and pertinent it's pertinent that there is effective training to help prevent attacks, to ensure that employees understand that cyber attacks can occur and how they are a danger to the company and to them and their families as well. It is also important that it is understood that cyber attacks impact both the employer and employees and their families. I don't think it is understood enough that these attacks are not just about stealing information or monetary gain, but they also can lead to victimizing people and even causing physical harm. I know it's not really talked about, and people only focus on the monetary and the information side, but it can lead to something greater depending on the groups that are leading the charge to cause mayhem and create fear. And I think that HR's focus should be on aligning and operating closely with IT and cyber divisions, and even including third party consultants that may have more knowledge on things that are occurring that they might not know about in the specific field, depending on the area. It might just not be military, but like this is a media field. So they may not know a lot about how attacks occur and things like that, new ways that things occur. So it's important to always look at bringing in third parties to develop new strategies to protect organizations as a whole. And I think also that HR professionals should consider taking courses to understand the basics of IT and cybersecurity, to
Right.
determine innovative approaches, to strengthening training processes and training. and work processes, and to have a clear understanding of what is necessary to protect not only the organization, but employees as well. I think that's very, very necessary and should have happened yesterday. It's important.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. And just to piggyback on that, yes, it in this instance with ransomware, it can be critical depending on the, I guess, the sector that it affects. So, I know there were reports of ransomware attacks that targeted hospitals,
Mhm.
and so if it's holding these files hostage that are carrying very important pertinent information for their for patients that are in the hospital, they may not know. Now you kind of lose access to what medication a certain patient's supposed to have, and this and that nature, and it could affect whether someone lives or dies. You know, and that's kind of where um this would be even another different debate, because now you talk about whether you should pay the ransom or not.
Yeah.
um you know I think in the case, maybe in the hospital, they may be kind of forced to do that, given that how dire it could be, the how important that information or that data is that's being locked away due to ransomware, um, because of who the patients that it affects, and how what condition those patients are, and those
Yes.
files that are being restricted. So, um, because then also, if companies pay, they're gonna get you know I'd say more or less punished by the government, this and that, for
Mhm.
paying ransoms. So yeah, like I said, I think that's like a whole nother discussion when it comes to whether you should pay the ransom, or
Yeah.
what situation is okay to pay the ransomware. But yeah, it's definitely something to. I think it's something to pay attention to, especially for organizations, to make sure um, that your employees are getting the latest, maybe cybersecurity training. Make sure that training is relevant too, not just something they could just it's not just a, like, check the box type of deal, like something that they can actually learn and absorb, and and be able to apply in their everyday use, while using company computers
Yes.
or systems. um I think also, as well, as far as when it comes to the IT team or cybersecurity team supporting these organizations, that they ensure that yeah. So I'm sorry. I see one of our, I guess, listeners, they just typed in backup. So I was just about to get to that. Yeah, need to make sure backups are done, and they're done regularly. So in the event that a ransomware attack happens, because a ransomware attack, it's not necessarily something that you could click on. It could just happen just out of the blue. They could just log in and you see the screen and say your files are being
Yeah.
locked down. Now you got to pay $5 or $10 million, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, so in order to kind of prevent, or to prepare yourselves for something like that, you want to make sure your systems are backed up regularly,
Mhm.
that you're able to function, that you know what the next step is when something like this may happen, or potentially happen, so you can still carry on operations. And from this article, from what we read, it seems to me that the Guardian did have contingencies in place that it still allows their employees to still be able to work from home and still carry on operations, at least, because they said they're still able to put out the print version of the newspapers, and still able to do the digital side as well. So yeah, it definitely took a blow, but they're still able to keep things going. And that's what I mean, is to have certain things in place, so
Yes.
when certain, you know I'd say, disasters or incidents like this happen, it doesn't completely handcuff you. You could still kind of
Thank
keep things going until you get it remedied. I did want to read one of, I see the chat, some folks are listening in. So I do want to make sure I acknowledge them. I doesn't show the person's name, but so one person wrote, I strongly feel that funding and cybersecurity programs within organizations plays a critical role in ensuring that threat actors have the upper hand in any cyber attack. These attacks will only increase and become more complex as new technologies emerge. This is an excellent discussion. Thanks.
You and
Yeah, I absolutely, and this kind of goes to what I was talking about as far as funding for cybersecurity. That funding for cybersecurity programs for when we talk about cybersecurity budgets, it definitely needs it definitely needs full attention, not to be looked at as some secondary, or to look at cybersecurity after attack has happened. No, we should be looking to how we could bolster our security for organization before something happens to try
exactly.
to help mitigate the blow.
Exactly, Dr. Joseph. Especially with now how more technology, AI, and robotics is being implemented into
Mhm.
businesses, even down to the McDonald's. They have the all robotic McDonald's that they're testing now out in, I think, Texas. And, Amazon, they have their stores where, there's no one working in there. You just go in, it reads off your phone, and you
Oh
put
yeah.
the stuff in the basket, and then you walk out, you're charged automatically, So the more that we're implementing technology into our lives, into the workplace, this is a common sense, I would say, common sense reason why. Wait, let me find my horn. Let me get my horn. I wasn't
Horn.
ready. I lost my horn. Find the horn, Dr. Joseph. Sound the alarm.
Manual.
Because I mean, it's just like, what is going on? I just don't get it. It's common sense that we have all this technology around us, and our information is so critical, and it's literally, we're carrying our information around with us everywhere that we go, right?
Mhm.
So it would be, in my mind, common sense that we invest heavily in cybersecurity and protection systems and things of that nature, because information is how we live, it's who we are, it determines the world that we live in, so it is sensitive, and it can be easily manipulated if it's not protected, and then what is truth and what is fact, and how do we survive, what's real when it comes to what medicine can save a life, like how we were talking about, if a
Mhm.
hospital was attacked, a lot of doctors, yes, they're doctors, but when they don't know the answer, the first thing they do is get into the system and
Right.
look for the system to tell them, based off of symptoms that a person is having, and that's what they determine would be the best medicine, what would be the best medicine and the best cure and the best approach and things
And also,
like that.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but even to that, like,
Hmm.
remember, it's not just one doctor. You have multiple doctors coming in shifts. They
Yeah.
they need they depend on that data to know what was last administered.
Yeah.
What was the latest going on with this patient. So that having that information is very important to know how to best effectively care for a patient and make sure they're not doing anything that's going to cause any harm. So now, if they're in a situation where those systems are not available to them, it's going to be very difficult to, especially with the amount of great number of patients that they had to care for,
Yes.
that they're responsible for. Then they're not gonna have all that in their brain.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
It's too much going
first.
on throughout the
Right.
day, too many patients and things like that. Especially like now, I mean, I know a lot of people don't think we're still in a pandemic. I'm one that believes we're still in a pandemic. So hospitals are still overran. It's not as crazy as it used to be, but depending on where you are, Mississippi, they're having it hard right now. Places
Right.
like
Yeah.
that, their hospitals are still overran. People are still seriously ill, and it's just interesting, and it's just scary at the same time. And I just think it's important that these issues are really taken into consideration and given the priority that it is deserved and the funding that is deserved. And that's why we're here doing this.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a wrap. This was like I said, I think this is a story definitely, to be continued. We'll see how things progress towards the end of the month, and maybe we'll do a follow up on this later on.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, this was great. Dr. Lisa, thank you again.
Yay!
And on the button. That's cool. No, and yeah, thank you to those watching and listening. Definitely appreciate you. Definitely appreciate the questions. Send them in as you watch. Definitely love to answer them as we're doing this live. So thank you. Someone just put in we should do a follow. You know what? I think we will. I think we will. We'll check back in towards the end of the month, see how things are going.
Yeah.
So, but thank you again. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes. Bye.